WhatsApp number is 0809 4440981. And you can also tweet at smooth981. We're streaming live. We're going live in 5, 4, 3. Okay, we're streaming live on YouTube, so you can catch that live stream up on our YouTube channel. It's smooth981. And you can even post a comment on there as well. Our analysts are in. It's Mr. C and Gbubemi. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Zibby. Good morning, Mr. C. Good morning, Lagos.
Good morning, Zibby. Good morning, Gbubemi. Good morning, Lagos.
All right, we're starting off with the headline coming from a Daily Trust. No going back on nationwide protests, and this is Labour's reply to the DSS. Mr. C?
Okay, thank you very much, Zibby. So, the organized labor movement has announced a strike, 2-day strike for next week, I believe, 26th, 27th, and 28th, or 26th and 27th. Now, what is 27th and 28th? Now, what is this strike about? This strike, it's really not a strike, it's more of a protest, and it's generally protesting the extremely poor and terrible economic conditions that Nigerians find themselves living today. They're protesting the ever-increasing cost of living, the ever-increasing cost of foodstuff, ever-increasing costs of goods and services, and it's gotten to a point where the average Nigerian is showing fighting. Now, here we have the DSS warning Labour not to embark on a strike, and they cite a few reasons. The first reason they say is that they are aware that some elements intend to hijack the protest and break law and order. Now, what I find extremely puzzling about the DSS's postures, this is not new. If you pick up any paper between 1985 and this year, that has always been the response of the DSS and its predecessor anytime there's a public protest. They're always aware of plots to hijack peaceful protests, but they're never aware of kidnapping, excursions, criminal activities. They're never aware before the act. Now, you say you're aware that certain elements intend to hijack the protest. Have you picked up any of them? Have you invited them for questioning? Have you actually done anything proactive on your end? No.
But you can't be sure if they haven't now, can you?
No. So here's the point, right? If they've done all of that, then there's no point telling Labour people want to hijack it because you would have picked them up. If you have that intelligence and you're sitting down on it, doing absolutely nothing, what's the point? Then you then say that governments at both the national and subnational level are doing their best to, and they use very interesting phrases. They spoke about unique economic realities. What does that mean in simple English? DSS, you are not the spokesperson for the federal government. There are people, there are individuals who have been appointed to do that job. Your job is to help monitor and enhance internal security, not to speak for the government. Now, the people are upset, the people are frustrated, the people are uncomfortable, and according to the provisions of the Nigerian Constitution, they have a right to peaceful protest. Now, issuing threats is not the way forward. Yesterday, the dollar exchanged for 1,900 now. This is extremely ridiculous. Since this current administration entered office, the price of the average foodstuff has increased by 100% across board. Inflation is at all-time record highs. And what really frustrates the average Nigerian is this. This current administration appears to be extremely confused. They seem to be throwing the entire sink at the problems in front of us, and there doesn't seem to be any light at the end of the tunnel, because they tried this, it doesn't work, they tried the other one, it doesn't work. And when you listen to government officials, it even saddens your heart. We had the vice president saying that the cause of all our present difficulties, the cause of our present reality, is disgruntled politicians who did not win last year's election. How ridiculous is that?
All right, well, okay.
And then we then have other people saying that, or there are people trying to frustrate the government, and that fifth elements who are determined to rubbish the efforts of this government. That doesn't make any sense. Address the issues on the ground. What are the long-term solutions? The Nigerian government has increased the duty rate for customs 5 or 6 times since December last year. It makes life difficult for everyone. So rather than threaten people, which is the old playbook from the military era, why not sit down and actually start providing results?
All right, thanks for that, Mr. C. Let's go on to the next headline. And of course, I see your messages coming through. Please keep them coming. 0809 440 981. And this one is coming from Premium Times. Hardship, Sanwo-Olu to unfold welfare plans for Lagos residents Thursday.
Okay, thank you very much, Zibby. So the governor of Lagos State is going to have a live media chat today at 11:15, where he will unfold his welfare plans for Lagos residents. Now we must remember that prior to now, he's given 50,000 naira to a certain number of traders within the Lagos metropolis. Now, he says his discussion will range from enhancing food security to bolstering health and infrastructure, and that these steps reflect our commitment to your welfare. Now, these are all, what's the word? These are all patchwork steps. The real issue here is, how are you stimulating the economy of Lagos? How are you making it conducive for people to come in and invest? What are you doing to ensure that the level and the quantum of informal street taxes are reduced or actually removed totally? What are you doing in space of public infrastructure? Yes, we know that Lagos State has an agency that is responsible for fiber optic rollout of cables for internet penetration and delivery. But beyond that, beyond this welfare tokenist moves, what is the plan of the Lagos State government to actually drive Lagos, which is considered by them to be a global city or on its way to becoming a global city? What is their plan for ensuring that business is enhanced and that the few businesses that are actually struggling, really struggling to survive in this present difficult and terrible economic conditions actually survive? That is what we want to hear. What are you doing? Are you pausing tenement and land use charges for businesses? Are you ensuring that, okay, for a period of time, they pay reduced personal income taxes for their employees? What exactly is the plan? Don't come and tell us you are giving 50,000, 20,000 to widows, 10,000 to school children. What is the real plan going forward? Well, let's keep our gunpowder dry. 11:15 is a few hours away, and we'll hear what the government has to say.
All right, and let's go on to WhatsApp. This message is coming from Cisco Delgado, and he says, I'm just going to pull that up. Okay, honestly speaking, and this is from Cisco, each time I hear nationwide protests by the NLC, I become angry because the NLC is part of Nigeria's problems today. NLC is a toothless bulldog that can only bark all the time without biting for once. And let's go on to the next headline, and this is also from Premium Times. Nigerian government transfers Zungeru hydropower plant to concessionaire. Gbubemi?
Okay, so this was announced at the first meeting of the National Council of Privatization. The Zungeru hydropower plant was transferred to Penstock Limited, which is a subsidiary of Mainstream Energy Solutions. The arrangements had been finalized as of last year, and then the hydropower plant was successfully handed over sometime in January. So this Zungeru hydroelectric power plant has a capacity for 740 megawatt hours and is located somewhere within River Kaduna, and it's the largest hydropower project in Nigeria. Coincidentally, it was conceived sometime in the 80s, but construction didn't start until about 10 years ago. And it was done in partnership with two Chinese firms, China National Electric Equipment Corporation and Sino Hydro Consortium. Well, the facility is expected to produce about 2.64 billion kilowatt hours of electricity annually and meet around 10% of Nigeria's total domestic energy requirements. This is truly commendable. I'm one of the people who believe that government should hands off public infrastructure such as electricity. If you look at the electricity situation, especially in the last few 5-6 weeks, the power situation has been really quite poor. Yes, we have the discos. The discos are private firms. Yes, we have the Gencos. The Gencos are private firms, but we also have the transmission company, which is still under the hands of the federal government, and there have been arguments about how that affects the power situation. Now, so with the handing over of this hydroelectric power plant to a concessionaire private organization, we expect that there will be better standards in terms of running and generating electricity that would contribute to the national grid. However, this just calls for a greater look into our power situation. So currently, we know that we've had a unique power situation in the last few weeks because of the situation of gas and gas payments, arguments back and forth between Gencos and Discos and all of that, which has greatly affected us. So we've had to rely largely on hydroelectricity, coincidentally. And like someone said to me, I was having a discussion, he said, well, until we get into the rainy season, electricity supply can't pick up because we're largely relying on hydroelectricity. So like I said, so this calls for a greater insight or scrutiny into that sector as well. One of my very firm beliefs is that if Nigerians have predictable power supply, well, we know we can't get to 24 hours in any time soon, but if we can predict to a certain extent a considerable amount of power is accessible to people, there's a lot more that we can do for ourselves, in this country in terms of development. And then also at that meeting, I must also note, like I mentioned, it was the National Council of Privatization meeting. There were also discussions about the restructuring of the Bank of Agriculture and the need to position it to suit the president's agriculture agenda. And then there was also a discussion about the proposed sale of Nitel Mtel asset, and a few other things as well.
All right, thank you for that. Let's go on to some of the messages coming through. This one is from JP, and he says, Zungero going to be run by Penstock isn't an issue. The question is, what is her pedigree? Why aren't listed companies doing this? The process seems opaque, in my opinion. And this one is from Yinka. Yinka says, are we not ashamed always comparing everything to the dollar? Can we, for once, deliberately focus more on local reliance and hold the government on that, making sure that there's power and infrastructure to support that? And on the DSS versus labor union matter, would you want the protest to go on? What good does that do for us? Shut down the economy? Do the unions need to protest to make their demands known? No. How about they embark on constant negotiations with the government? I think we need to take it easy on these things as it's not taking us anywhere. Message from Daniel. Daniel says, Mr. C, this government's doing very well. All the issues are caused by Nigerians trying to frustrate their successes. There's fuel everywhere, electricity and food surplus. Nigerians have never had it so good with security. Only enemies want to protest. Ask your neighbor. All right, we'll keep the messages coming. Mr. C, I've got a message here. Someone says you're not very audible. Can you say something just to be sure?
Okay, so thank you for the feedback, and I'm sure I'll correct that. Thank you.
All right, let us know if this sounds better. Stay with us. You're listening to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1.
And you're listening to the Smooth Breakfast Show. You are an orchestra. Watching
It's amazing.
like listening to a symphony of body parts directed by a maestro. When you walk, it is like watching a G clef stroll across an octave accented by a C
So,
sharp.
Zibby, who's going next?
When
Gbubemi or
you
me?
talk,
I think
cadence
Gbubemi.
of your voice
No,
is
no,
a
don't
trend
you
of
say-
Okay,
voice.
don't to Gbubemi.
Yeah,
Okay,
you
to a
3.
cello
2, 1,
at perfect
okay.
pitch.
So him.
And you are so smooth.
What's the next word?
That's why
Where is
we
it?
keep
Oh.
it here on 98.1.
Miriam, check if you can hear Mr. C. Could you hear the last thing he said?
Signing out.
Let me know.
This is Smooth Breakfast on your dial, just the way you like it. Satisfaction guaranteed.
Do you even know where I got that from?
All right, we're going on. It's Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. It's Zibby here, and we have the analysts in. It's Mr. C and Gbubemi this very rainy Thursday. Let us know your thoughts. The WhatsApp number is 0809 4440981. And you can also tweet at Smooth981. We're streaming live on YouTube as well, so you can catch that live stream. It's up on our YouTube channel, Smooth981. Our next headline, this one is for you, Mr. C, and it's coming from The Nation. Federal government vows to improve border security.
Okay, so thank you, Zibby. Whenever I read headlines like this, I just know the government is not, it's not being honest, it's not being factual, and it's not being serious. They're always issuing statements of intent, statements of declaration, but no statements of real effect. Now, what is the current headline? The federal government vows to improve border security. Now, to understand this border security issue, you need to travel up north. So, for example, Niger has borders border space with Nigeria over 1,000 kilometers. In some of those places, what separates Nigeria from Niger is a tree. Sometimes it's open grass. There are no proper walls, there's no border posts. Then we get to the issue of manpower. Who is tasked with maintaining Nigeria's borders? It's a joint effort between the Nigerian Customs Service, the Nigerian Immigration Service, and I'll dare say to some extent, the Nigerian Army. We all know that all three agencies or all three units are severely undermanned. We don't have the right number of bodies in. We don't use effectively modern technology. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about drones. I'm talking about satellite imagery. I'm talking about even having motion sensors, but you must apply motion sensors to an actual installation. And in most cases, they're simply not there. Then they referred, all of this is hinged on the fact that the activities of smugglers have become more intense, more rampant. In all of this, nobody is actually calling into question the effectiveness of the Nigerian Customs Service, because really and truly, right, smugglers tend to follow a pattern after a period of time. People who live in the border communities can easily tell you the routes the smugglers use. So the Nigerian Customs Service cannot be suggesting that it does not know these routes. But all in all, this is a statement of intent which requires serious financing. And right now, Nigeria simply doesn't have the money for this. So where is the money to enhance border security supposed to come from? Certainly, it's not falling from the sky. We're in a period where we have mortgaged part of our future oil earnings to deal with the current situation, which is not being dealt with, to the point that we cannot even supply the local refinery here with crude. Now it has to import crude. Nigeria is a big running joke right now. And mark what I say, this will join the ever-increasing number of promises and declarations this administration will make. We're yet to actually see anything they've actually started and completed. We're heading into month number 10. Truly amazing times for Nigerians.
Did you want to say something, Gbubemi? Okay. All right. You had your pen up, like, when you're in class. You're like, yes, I want to say something. Okay, let's go on to the messages coming through via WhatsApp. Idima Puza says, anytime governments want to create money for the boys, they'll vote money to be distributed to the masses. Why not use the funds to subsidize foodstuff prices for the masses? Another message coming through, and this one is from Ajayi Olonilua, and he says, it's a shame that we're still talking about rainy or dry season affecting availability of electricity in the country. Message coming through, this one is from Ibukun. He says, the DSS always have intelligent reports when it comes to protests, but not on bandits and terrorists. Good news about Zungeru, but without TCN improving grid capacity, we will not have constant electricity, as we can generate we can't generate more electricity than the grid can carry. And that message is from Ibukun. All right, let's go on to the next headline. You can keep the messages coming, 0809 440 981. This one is for you, Gbubemi. Developers reject 8,000 naira cement price, and it's coming from Punch.
So the price of cement recently shot up to as much as even 15,000 naira per bag, leading to developers crying out, and having a meeting with representatives of the federal government, wherein they agreed that the price of cement should come down to between 7 to 8,000 naira per bag, depending on location. Well, two individuals, the president of the Real Estate Developers Association of Nigeria, Dr. Lee Wamako, and the executive secretary of the Association of Housing Corporations, Toye Enyola, have both rejected the price, saying that it is too expensive for the economy. Both of them incidentally cited that Boa Cement promised to slash the price of cement from about 5,500 when he made that promise to 3,500 naira a bag. And they're wondering why that hasn't happened. They've also cited the fact that a lot of the components to manufacture cement are sourced locally, so they're wondering why the price of cement has had to go up so much. So those are questions that it would be nice if we had some sort of answers to, because I've also wondered about it as well. I can imagine people who are doing building projects around the country. I've spoken to one or two developers at least who have had to pause because it doesn't make sense. You've already done a budget for your housing constructions, and then the price of cement shoots up by as much as 200 or 300%. And then you're wondering how can we continue? And when we speak about affordable housing, every time we talk about the housing deficit in the country, so developing is not just about developing luxury flats or whatever. There's also affordable housing. So how would those housing projects be truly affordable if cement, which is the main component, is that expensive? And it's not even just cement. We also have like steel rods, for example. So I was hearing that 1 ton is about 1.3 million now, as against about 700 or 800,000, which it was sometime towards the end of last year. So the price has almost doubled. And then we can also imagine all the other components as well, involved in construction. So I think that their calls are quite valid. I think it's very, very important that the cement manufacturers are a bit more open about how they've achieved the pricing. I'm not quite sure, why cement should be even as expensive as 7,000 naira a bag. I've also heard that across the board that cement is a lot cheaper, which is why, a few days ago there was a news story that said that the federal government was threatening to open the borders to importation of cement to crash the price. So it's important that cement manufacturers, like I said, are a bit more open as to the pricing of cement. I don't know why it's that expensive. It seems as if everybody's hinging their prices on the increase in the dollar now. And like these individuals have noted, a lot of the components are locally sourced. If it's energy, well, that's one of the components I know, but I'm not quite sure how significant that factors into the cost of production. So in my opinion, their calls are quite valid, and I would really like also Boa to explain why their cement price never fell down to 3,500 naira per bag.
All right, thank you for that, Gbubemi. Let's move on to the next headline. Exchange rate for cargo clearance hits 1,605 naira to a dollar, and that headline's from Punch.
Okay,
Mr.
thank
C.
you very much, Zibby. So this is, I think, the fifth or sixth increase since December. In December, it was 952 naira to a dollar. Then it went up to 1,356 naira. Then it moved to 1,413 naira to the dollar, before moving up again to 1,444 naira to the dollar. Then again, it moved to 1,515 naira. Then now to its current rate of 1,605 naira. Now, what does this all mean to anyone who's listening to the show? What this means is it's increasingly becoming difficult, extremely difficult to do business in Nigeria, and especially for the importers. Now, why am I making reference to the importers? As you're well aware, or you should be well aware by now, if you follow this show regularly, Nigeria is an import-dependent nation. There's very little we do here in terms of production. So almost everything we consume here is imported. Now, the process is you take out a Form M to bring in the goods and to source forex at the official rate. And then there's a time lag between when you start the process and then when the goods come in. And duty only becomes payable when the goods arrive in Nigeria. So let me put it in numbers that everyone will understand. Gbubemi is importing goods. At the time he starts his transaction, the dollar dollar is 1,000 naira. It's dollar is exchanging for 1,000 naira based on that rate. It's going to come in 2 weeks later, and the dollar's doing 1,500 naira, and he then has to pay duty on new rate, which is 1,500 naira, as opposed to what he initially projected, which was 8,000 naira. Now that is a 500 naira loss. Who is going to bear that loss ultimately? It's the end consumer. So the thing about businesses anywhere in the world is they need some sort of consistency. They need to be able to predict with some sort of certainty over a period of time what will actually happen. Now, what this means is that going forward, our importers may be constrained to consider the ports of neighboring countries, and then Nigeria will further lose badly needed revenue. Again, back to the government. It is extremely clear now that whatever it is you've been doing up until this point is not working.
All right. Okay.
So it's one of two things: either figure out what to do or throw in the towel.
All right, thanks for your analysis, Mr. C. Let's look at the messages coming through. Ibukun says, if these cement factories run on gas, which is priced in dollars, then the price of cement cannot stay the same. They may also have US dollar loans and other technical service agreements that may be paid in US dollars. Ibrahim says, I'm concerned about government apologists and labor that have sold out. If the hardship faced by Nigerians is a nice thing by these government apologists, let them remember when it rains, it does on every home. Let's ignore the messenger and focus on the message. Nigerians are hungry. Lecon says iron rod was sold at 490,000 in December and now cost 1.3 million. Joseph says, Joseph Meni says, where exactly on this earth is inflation challenge solved by sharing money to citizens? It's unrealistic and another conduit pipe for misappropriation and no accountability. Our leaders should stop these shenanigans. And in just under a minute, Creative Economy Ministry partners any
to see how the public sector is relating with the private sector. So the NESG, the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, is a private think tank that connects private sector leaders with public sector leaders as well, to be able to come together to deliberate on issues that affect the Nigerian economy, policy formulation, planning, up until implementation. So it's sort of like a support group for the public sector. And now the Ministry of Arts, Culture and Creative Economy have also decided to partner with them. This is truly commendable. On talks are that there's support for training, support for improvements in policy formulation and review as well. If we note, the arts and culture sector in Nigeria, is a really solid sector that can impact on it. We've been able to export globally. There are other aspects to the creative economy as well. And incidentally, it's a sector that focuses a lot on creative skills, and which are what a lot of young people are well known for. So this partnership is truly commendable. It's nice to see, and it will be nice to see what comes out of it.
All right, thank you for that. That is all the time that we have for Freshly Pressed this morning. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for your messages, and special thanks to our analysts, Mr. C and Gbubemi, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do stay with us. There's a lot more to come on the Smooth Breakfast.